Hey guys, good morning. Today I just really wanted to show you really quickly how I put together a swarm trap. This is not the ideal swarm trap. They make these and you can buy them, but you know what? It's worked for me like 5 times, so I'm just going to stay with what I got. What I do here is I just grab an old deep hive body frame that hive body that I have. It's not in the best shape, like it's not the best of my equipment, so I kind of try to use my second-hand, if you will, equipment for my swarm traps, because they usually get put up in tree stands and left there for potentially quite a bit of time. And I obviously use my other hive bodies that are in better condition for my active hives. So I have one deep hive body here. I have a solid bottom board that I have attached using these 1x2 scrap strips of wood that just have a screw through the bottom board and through the hive body, just to secure it and make it all one piece. I just use some exterior screws, make sure obviously it won't go through the hive body all the way. This one is the perfect size. I can't remember what size it is. I think it's 1 5/8. But all I do is I just screwed, like I said, just some scrap 1x2s. I cut them, made sure my box was flush to the bottom board, and yeah, you can tell it's obviously easy to manage now, and I don't have to worry about the bottom board falling off as I'm trying to maneuver a tree stand, like a hive up in a tree stand. So that's step 1. Step 2 is I put some nails in the rails here that the frames go on. What I use for frames are, I use a couple blanks. These are what I call, I don't even know if this is a hybrid version of frames. I started out beekeeping with solid plastic frames, and I've gone through the gamut of all the different options, right? I ideally love the idea of natural drawn frame. The bees communicate through it better. There are just so many advantages to letting the bees draw out all of their own natural wax. But the disadvantage is obviously it can break, it falls, they sometimes do whatever they want. So I like these hybrid. I have a video on my channel, you can check it out, how I make these hybrid versions where it's just the plastic starter strip, and then they will go ahead and build out naturally the rest of the frames. I don't want to put too much wax, drawn wax, in this swarm trap, because if the hive, the wax moths were to find it before it gets taken up residence by a colony of bees, I don't want the wax moths to eat out like 5 good solid frames of beeswax, because that would just be awful. So what I have here is, like, I'm going to put a couple, like I said, blanks in here. I am going to put 1 or 2, in this case, older frames of beeswax. The old dark stuff bees love, they can smell it, it has a lot of history, if you will, and they can tell that at some point this was a good home, and hopefully when the scout bees find this, they're like, oh yeah, this is great, somebody else thought this was great too. So you probably can't tell, but this is actually one of those hybrid frames. The starter strip stops right about here. You guys can see that. Again, this is an old frame. The starter strip stops right here. And all of this, the bees did themselves. And this gives them the opportunity to obviously build drone comb if they want, or whatever. I won't get too far into that. You can go to the video if you want. But you can see how they attach on the sides, and this is what those blanks will eventually look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick 2 of these frames. Again, these are at the end of the life cycle anyway. You need to rotate frames through occasionally because stuff builds up in the wax, and it's just good to get healthy, clean wax in there every so often. So I'm sticking 2 drawn out frames where when that queen arrives, she can see that she's got a home and she's got wax that she can lay in right away. Because as soon as that queen starts laying eggs, the chances of her staying in that box are exponentially higher and calling it home, because she obviously doesn't want to leave her babies behind. So got these in there. Hopefully the queen will find it quickly. She can start laying. As soon as I get brood in there, we're good to go. I put 5 frames in here. And the reason why I have these nails is so that you can tell when I do this, my frames aren't going anywhere. It pins in the 5 frames. Obviously this is not ideal. I'm never going to hold it for a hive up on its side like this. But the purpose of that is that it pins these 5 frames into the center. It doesn't allow them to shift, so that when I'm trying to maneuver this thing out of a tree, I don't have to be worrying about the frames sliding everywhere. I don't have to worry about putting extra frames in here that they probably won't be able to manage right away. This makes it a lot easier and a lot safer to move to its new location. So these nails are a really, really good idea. I would highly recommend it. And all you gotta do is, like with your hive tool or with a hammer, when you get it to its final location, I mean, they're fine, honestly, for right now, because you could just add more frames and not even worry about taking off nails. But eventually you can just pop these out really easily and be good to go. So I put the nails there. You can also use screws, but I find that popping them out is a lot quicker with like a hive tool versus having to get a screwdriver or a drill in there. Bees don't love that. you know, screwing things out of the hive. So obviously I do things with the bees in mind and what's going to make them the most happy. So a couple anchor points to make sure you keep your frames secured in the middle of your swarm box. I'm going to take these out real quick because I'm going to show you one other thing that I do. It's just to demonstrate obviously why I have the nails there. What I also do for my swarms is I put a lure in here. I bought these swarm tubes, slow release swarm lure tubes at a conference one time. All they are these little tiny tubes, and this top closes shut. So I can do it with one hand. I can't do it with one. There we go. It's got like a microscopic hole that releases. What you put in here is lemongrass essential oil, because lemongrass essential oil mimics the queen pheromone. Obviously use a food grade. I use Young Living, it's just the brand that I choose. You do you. But make sure it is food grade. That's very important, okay? Don't put super cheap garbage oil in there. Unfortunately, there are like 0 regulations on how essential oils can be marketed, and I won't go down that road. But make sure it comes from a company that you trust and that it is food grade, like that you would be able to eat it safely. That's what you want to get for your bees. So all I do is I fill up a couple drops of that. Let's see, where do I put that? I didn't just drop those frames. I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, and maybe I didn't drop something or break something. Here's what it looks like when it's got the lemongrass oil in it. And all I do is I take a nail, a very small nail, and I pin it in right above the entrance. So this is where the bees will be coming in through the entrance here. I tack in a nail and I just bent it over, so it's kind of like a hook. And I'll put this in here, and then I'll bring the camera over here and show you guys what I'm talking about. But I put it in right above the entrance of the box, so that the bees can obviously smell it, and that they come in to investigate, and they, you know, can see it right there at the entrance of the hive. I'll take this out, obviously, once the bees have taken up residence. Let me show you here what I'm talking about. Hopefully I can take this off without. So this is wax moth damage, by the way. Like, how awful is that? They will eat up your hives. So anyway, I've scraped this down, power pressure washed it, all that jazz. But this is obviously why I'm using this less than ideal box. This is the nail and swarm lure that I'm talking about. The bees come in through this entrance here, and the hole's right there. Obviously make sure you tilt it upwards so that it's not dripping out oil. You want it to stay in there and slowly release that essential oil compound. Let's see what else. These are the nails that I was talking about. And then obviously I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you here while you're closer how I do this. Let's see, that's 1, 2. And I'll get the other 2 that I dropped here in just a second. But that's what I'm talking about for the swarm lure. Okay, put this back on my, sorry, I wish I had a camera that could like follow me around, but you know, I do all the things here. Hold on one second. All right, so this one's going in there. And there we go, we got our 5 flames back in here. Okay, that's pretty easy, pretty simple. I think I used like 5 or 6 drops of essential oil in that swarm lure, by the way. So this is what I got so far. Next thing I want to do is I want to just put on my typical inner cover and my telescoping outer cover. One quick piece of advice on the outer cover that I've learned: I run a bead of wood glue all along the crevice where it meets. I don't know about where you live in your beekeeping situation, but here we have a serious problem with ants. Gosh, they're just so annoying. They make the bees so mad. So I make sure I put a bead of wood glue along here so there's no crack and crevice, because I've had ants get in there and take up residence inside the top of the telescoping lid. Also, I make sure I staple really well the edge of this aluminum and caulk really good so that they can't get in there, because I tell you what, I have had probably close to 8 hives maybe that ended up getting nests go in between this metal and the wood inside, make a nest. Like it's annoying. So save yourself some heartache. This is what I do here. I just stick it on top. Like I said, the bottom pieces are already attached together. Now all I do is I ratchet strap this together with some ratchet straps. I do one on the back and one in the front to make sure that it is evenly secured. This is really hard to do with. Okay. I mean, you don't need me to show you how to ratchet strap. You know how to do that. I'm sure you do. But that's what I do. I just do like one here and one here. Sorry, I don't know why my lighting is getting so bad. And that's it. Then I can grab it by the straps, and it's like one solid cohesive piece. I can maneuver it. I stick this up in a tree. I use a tree stand actually. It's great because it's high up off the ground. It's their ideal like swarm height. You want to try to mimic the ideal situations that they would look for in nature. So it's usually about this size volume. It's a little bit smaller is ideal, but again, this is what I have to work with, and it's worked, so I'm gonna stick with it. And they like I think it's like 12 to 15 feet off the ground. They want to find like a howl tree hole somewhere. So give it a shot. I mean, being able to catch wild bees is a great way to diversify the genetics in your bee yard. It's a great way to get free bees. Like nothing better than having bees just show up in your yard. All too often we have to worry about them leaving, right? But it's really a nice reward when they end up just coming to you. Well, that's that. I mean, it cost me literally nothing to do this. Just a couple pennies for the essential oil and the lure, and obviously I had this old equipment standing by. So I've caught, like I said, probably 5 or 6 hives this way, and it's been really successful. Another quick note, I did sort of try to spray paint camouflage this box. I had to replace the lid because the one I used last year was just toast. But ideally, you could give it a little bit of a spray paint, make it look like it's blending in. I don't think the bees will really care too much. But that's that. Make sure you check on your hive, your swarm lure box thing, words. Make sure you check on your swarm trap every so often, and you will know when you have bees in the hive because they will do the orientation flight. You'll see them come and go. If they are bringing pollen into that box, that's a pretty foolproof way to tell that they have started taking up home inside your box. You'll get a lot of scout bees, and you'll get a lot of bees that will be checking it out. Be patient until you see those signs that they have really established a residence there, because if you go in there and you keep messing with it to see if the scout bees have attracted a swarm, you could cause them to just be like, no, this is not a good location. Somebody keeps busting in our place here. So give it a shot. I mean, what do you have to lose? One other thing, I do usually take a little bit of the lemongrass oil and I'll like rub it on the outside of the box. I'll even take a little bit of like honey and do that as well. And that just encourages foragers and potentially scout bees to find it and check it out. Obviously, if you live in an area where there's lots of woods, they have lots of options, so you want to encourage them to at least, you know, give this a try. And yeah, after you catch a swarm, close up the front entrance obviously at night, lower them down to their new location, and you have bees. I will normally leave them locked up because I just put them in my yard. I don't move them 3 miles or less than 3 feet. I will leave them locked up. Before I lock them up at night to move them, I will pop it open, make sure that they have some honey stored in there, and if they don't, I'll give them a frame of honey stores so that when I lock them up for honestly about 3 days is how long they need to kind of reorient themselves. I'll make sure that I give them some food before I do that, so I don't just like lock them in there and starve them out before they even have a chance to get some stores put on their hive. So, all right, that's that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you tried anything similarly or if you have any questions.